Hey, my name is Shakiel Mahjouri, and I recently interviewed a number of pro fighters to get their breakdown and predictions on the UFC Stockholm light heavyweight clash between Alexander Gustafsson and Anthony Smith. Enjoy. First is top-ranked UFC bantamweight contender Aljamain Sterling.
I think there's a very interesting matchup. Anthony Smith tends to stick in the fight and find a way to win against high-level competition. He wasn't able to find that opening against Jon Jones in his last outing. The same thing with Gustafsson. Gustafsson got taken down. Jon Jones was able to capitalize on the top position when he was able to trap the wrist against Gustafsson. I know people say Gustafsson's best days are a little bit behind him in terms of his war with Jon Jones, his war with DC and coming up short. But he's still a tough competitor. I think that's evident when he fought Glover Teixeira, and he's got really slick boxing, quick hands. He's nimble on the feet. I think if he can stay on his bike and keep the fight at his boxing range, I think good things are going to happen for Gustafsson. But we've seen Smith take a beating and come back. It's like he's almost like playing the rope-a-dope in MMA and letting guys tire themselves out, and then he comes back with a fury and puts guys away. So it's a tough one to say. I don't really like picking fights, but I think if they fight to their strengths, you can see whoever wins that one.
Next is another highly ranked UFC bantamweight, Jimmie Rivera.
I think with how Anthony performed his last performance, I think Alexander is going to win. I think it was just he had a better performance than Anthony does, but they're both really good guys. That's a hard one to choose between. So if I had to pick one, I think I'd pick Alexander.
Introducing welterweight contender Santiago Ponzinibbio.
I think it's Gustafsson, man. Gustafsson have more recruits for won this fight. Just only fight smart. It's more complete fight, I think Gustafsson won.
Former UFC and Bellator welterweight title challenger Jon Fitch.
I'm gonna have to go with Gustafsson. I think Smith. I think is tough. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's the young guy who's gonna wipe out the older guys at 205. But he's not even really that young. He's been around a long time. He still had 30 fights. He was tough through the Jones fight, but it seemed like he stopped trying to win after the first round and was just trying to survive. So it'll be interesting to see if he comes with a little more offense against Gustafsson, but I'm probably going to go with Gustafsson, yeah.
Introducing hard-hitting featherweight Josh Emmett.
Man, Gustafsson, I'm going to go with Gustafsson. Anthony Smith, he has the power, and he comes out, and you can never count that guy out. He's always he's finished a ton of legends, and he looked good, looked decent against Jon Jones when he said he just didn't put it all together. But, a lot of people would have gave up or took the easy route out. And, man, he's tough as nails. If he doesn't finish it early if he doesn't finish it in the first round or early second, then I see Gustafsson pulling off a win.
Next is Cody Stamann.
Man, I don't really study this weight class very often, but Gustafsson really didn't look very good. His last time out against Jon Jones, and I don't know if it's because Jon Jones got that much better or because Gustafsson had a bad night. But this is a tough one for me because I think stylistically they're really, really similar. So I would say whatever guy shows up that night. If I had to guess, I would say Anthony Smith because I think he's really, really hungry after his last fight. And, kind of at these levels, I think it's more about the mentality going into the fight than really what the guy's bringing. Everyone's so good. Everyone, all these guys have seen every punch and kick that you could throw at someone. But this is the guy that has more to lose or that's in a situation where, his back's on the wall. And I think for Anthony Smith, if he ever wants to, compete, for the title again, I think this is kind of a must-win situation for him. So I could see Anthony Smith pulling this out.
Coming off of a win in his last fight, Max Griffin.
That's an intriguing fight. I was kind of surprised by that fight. I think Anthony has a lot to prove now. After his last performance, he just wasn't in the fight. He wasn't himself. So I think he's going to come in there with a bat out of hell and try to finish. You know, he knows he wasn't himself the last fight. He just wasn't in the game. And I believe that if he is in the game, he could beat Gustafsson. Probably if Anthony wins, it's going to be in the first couple rounds. But I think if it goes long, you know, Gustafsson's going to get the decision.
Canadian middleweight Elias Theodorou.
Yeah, the only thing that kind of like looked at me, I just didn't even like the way that Smith was like talking to Ariel about his level of excitement to fight. Didn't really seem there. He almost seemed like he was pushed in the corner. And he, like, again, he wants a big camp after coming off of a loss like that, mentally and physically. One could obviously, you know, pull right through and, you know, another upset and get a knockout, et cetera, et cetera. Or they could be a lot of kind of just build up and, you know, kind of unsettled, what's it called, resolution in regards to the fight that he had with Jon Jones. He didn't lose because he got beaten. He just didn't show up in some capacity. You know what I mean? And there was a certain point in the fight, because I was there, there was a certain point in the fight where it just seemed that he was just kind of, and I've had this in training sessions where someone is really just fighting to kind of survive the clock in some capacity and more defensive rather than any offense. And in some ways, Jones, you know, fights to his ability, to, you know, the level of competition that he has. Point being, Gustafsson, you know, he's always like right in there, and even though he lost to Jon Jones in a more dominant fashion, he's always, you know, he can beat anyone except for kind of DC and Jones. And you know, Anthony Johnson, he had an amazing run before this, but obviously, if you just look at the two's resume, you know, Gustafsson has, you know, had much more dominance in his career, and I think Anthony Smith's ability to get a title shot is more actually about the way that MMA is, where you just need to put like 4 fights together to kind of get the hype, to kind of ride the wave into a title shot. Whereas Anthony Gustafsson has been there time and time again. So I think Gustafsson is going to dominate, whether it's, you know, a long fight or you know, using his boxing to get the finish. You know, I think he'll learn from the mistakes of any of the, you know, what Jones did, but both of them got caught in the same thing in some capacity, kept on the outside, then kind of taken down and brought in. So, you know, Gustafsson.
KSW's Philip DeFries.
Well, I was just talking about this today. I think Gustafsson, Gustafsson's a better striker than Smith, and I don't think Smith has got the wrestling to get Gustafsson on his back, so I'm going to go with Gustafsson.
Last but not least, Eryk Anders.
Man, I would really like Anthony Smith to win that fight. You know, I actually got to train with Anthony Smith at the last part of his camp for Jon Jones. He looked phenomenal. He's a lot bigger and heavier than I thought he was, a lot stronger too. So I think he's going to surprise. I think Gustafsson may be a little more technical, but man, as we've seen in the past, man, it's tough to get rid of Anthony Smith. And Gustafsson, I don't think he wrestles very well, and that's something that Anthony does really well. So that he puts Gustafsson on his back.